Hi everybody, it's Darby Miller from the Hellfire Remote Viewing Club, and today I'm going over my session highlights for target 794-965, the Hitchhiker Effect. Now what I'll be sharing is the parts of my data that I either found the most interesting or that seemed to reflect the main themes that came up for the 5 sessions I did for this target. So for session 1, one of the first things I saw was this image of a spider or insect-like creature, and this was a theme that came up throughout the 5 sessions I did for this target. Another theme that seemed to come up repeatedly was the idea of a life form or life forms behind some type of a barrier or enclosure. We have here on this page of data a drawing that appears to show a life form behind an enclosure, bars, or a cage perhaps. It's making a chittering sound. It smells and tastes sweet and creamy. It is hairy. I thought that it was an animal life form behind a barrier. This is a drawing from session 2. We have here these objects that when I probed them seemed like rocks. They seemed like they were for energy or power. There was another item here that seemed like a man-made machine or tool of some type. It was metallic, and I got the concept of testing silicon for computer chips. This is another drawing from session 2. This is an image of some type of a man-made machine or vehicle perhaps. It is pressurized inside, large enough to fit a pilot, and it appears to be measuring things, perhaps weather-related. This is a site sketch from session 3. A site sketch is the summary of the data on the previous pages that precede the site sketch for any particular session. In this case, we're looking at a rocky landscape. I'm getting some sizzling there. I'm not sure what that's about. And then we have some images of a plant. Here's a plant, a little image of a plant being held by someone's fingers, and there seems to be a narrative here of something being planted. It grows, it is harvested, and then it is refined into some type of a substance that is imbibed, perhaps a beverage. And associated with this is the concept of a religious ritual celebration. There is the smell of incense in the air, and it appears that there could be someone involved in this celebration against their will. And there is also an image of an enclosure with life forms behind the enclosure and what looks like a table perhaps. This is another site sketch from session 4. We have a hilly landscape with a structure. The landscape appears to be sandy, hot, and dry. There is inside one of the structures, again, life forms behind an enclosure. It is musty, cool, and dirty inside. Here we have our friendly neighborhood spider again. He is sweet, gooey, hairy, and there are some what look like containers here. Seem to be for collecting something. Here is an iridescent object that appears to be desired by the hands reaching out toward it. On this page, I'm probing one of the structures at the target. Again, we have a hilly landscape with a structure in the middle. When I probed the purpose of the structure, I got that it was for bodies. I probed further. I got the concept of perhaps experiments, maybe a female scientist, and then the concept of something being processed. This is another structure at the target. This I got data that it was a command and control center, and they are receiving orders, getting orders. The scope of the orders appear to be government related. And this is probably my favorite page from this particular session. I think this is session 4. Here we have an image of what I AOL'd as royal headgear, but when I probed it further, I got this image of a mushroom. And when I probed that further, I got this image of an object moving towards some type of what I got was a nexus or a wormhole, or or a portal is actually what I got. And there was this concept of traveling to somewhere. And one of the things I find so interesting about this data is that almost all of our viewers got data related to either a portal or a tunnel or a wormhole where there was some type of travel happening. And Dennis Nappy, he actually got images of mushrooms in his session data as well. And related to the mushrooms he saw was, again, the concept of a wormhole. And he actually did a neat little drawing. He drew what he called a wormhole, and then there was something that was heading towards the wormhole to travel through it. And what the wormhole would do was to bend outwards and engulf this object or whatever it was. And there we have our mushroom shape. So I think in my data and probably Dennis's data, the mushroom is a metaphor for some type of a portal or wormhole of some type that's involved with traveling. This is just some other data from session 4, I believe. We have here an image of what I thought looked like a fetus, and when I probed it further, I got that it was being grown or manufactured and eventually eaten. Associated with this appears to be this image of our spider again. And what is it doing? I asked. It was organizing, and I saw an image of these rows of circular objects, which I'm AOLing as eggs of some type. And there's this image of something that looks like tweezers manipulating them. I probed further and asked for what purpose was the spider creature organizing, and I got that it was making food. And I saw an image of this spider crawling on top of what to me looked like a piece of meat, but in looking at it now, it could just as easily be a cocoon or almost like a hive where there's different larvae pods, and the spider is taking care of these baby larvae as they're growing, perhaps. This is, I believe, a site sketch for session 5, perhaps. We have our spider again, and this image of something that to me looks like almost like what you'd use to tap a maple tree. There's a hole here, and the syrup or whatever is being collected is running out through that spout there. We have a landscape, a hilly landscape, and there is a structure with very strong energetics associated with that landscape. I think Naeem might have had data similar to that. Here's another probe of the life form at the target, and I saw this image of a flask with insect-like creatures crawling over it. I probed that further. I asked what the contents was used for, and I got that it was part of a song, which I think is interesting because Dennis had very similar data. I think Dennis had data that said that there was the singing of a song which created some type of a harmonization, and that was related to the activation of the wormhole and activation of the traveling through the wormhole. And when I probed this further, I asked what was in the flask. I got the concept of children and saw this image of what to me looked like a zebra's snout, but now that I'm looking at it, it looks like an insect larvae to me. And again, some images here of a spider-like creature. This page is showing something being processed and collected, and whatever's being processed has a toxic element to it, but it is highly coveted. The end result is highly coveted, and this is happening in one of the structures at the target. This is data I was probing to get more data around the energetics that I was picking up at the target. We have some strong energetics. There's an object that glows at times. It's kind of a domed object. It emits something like energetic waves. And the purpose of these energetic waves is frequency, noise, and tone. And again, I'm thinking back to the previous page or the one before where there's this part of a song data and Dennis's data regarding a singing of a song that creates a harmonization. I think this all ties together with the data of the wormhole in some way. And this was the last page that I did for my session, session 5, and the last page I'll share in this video. This was while I was doing a technique that we use for the HRVG remote viewing protocol. I'm trained with both CRV and more recently HRVG. And when I did this protocol, I saw a mushroom again. And when I probed it, one of the things I got is that it was a way forward for someone. And again, calling out Dennis's data, he had the exact same data on one of his sessions, that there was something was a way forward. And I also heard they are riding across the globe, or they ride across the globe. And I asked who rides, and I got the government, many people. I asked how. I got train, bus, and cow, which I think is a metaphor for some type of a vehicle. And I asked why, and I got chamber, gather, fortitude, assembly. So someone is traveling through some type of a portal and in some type of a vehicle to gather and assemble somewhere. And that is the highlights of the data that I wanted to share with you. Of course, you can find the complete sessions in the PDF download that'll be available for you. I thought this was a very interesting target, a great target certainly for the Hellfire Remote Viewing Club. And there's definitely, I think, kind of interpreting my data now, I think that at the Skinwalker Ranch, there is some type of a portal, and associated with this portal are energetics that emit some type of frequency or tone or sound that may be related to the activation of the portal. And this other data with some type of insect-like creatures that are growing some type of a food or taking care of the food, and eventually this food is harvested and consumed in possibly a ritual sort of a fashion. I don't know what to make of that, but there's almost something that feels, I'll use the word psychedelic. I'm wondering if the mushrooms have at least a couple of different meanings. One of the meaning of the mushroom data may be this portal or wormhole, but are there life forms associated with the target, perhaps in the past, perhaps in the future, who are consuming something, maybe something biological, something made from some type of insect-like creature perhaps, and that this is also somehow plays an effect with this wormhole. I did a little Googling yesterday, trying to make a little more sense of this data, and I found myself wondering if insects were consumed by certain cultures. And I didn't find any spiders that were consumed for hallucinatory effects, but ants were consumed. Certain types of ants were consumed by some Native American cultures in North America and I think other parts of the world. Is it possible that's related? I can't say. That it's interesting data. And one little synchronicity that I'll leave you with is I have a colleague at work that's interested in remote viewing and is beginning to do some remote viewing training herself. And I was sharing with her a little bit about this particular target that had been completed. I went back to my office, and about 10 minutes later, I walked back out to share something else with her. And I found that another one of my colleagues that's doesn't know anything about remote viewing at all, and it is not hasn't shown an interest in it. But he was talking about and sharing photos with people in the office about how people in his culture, he's from Cambodia, eat spiders, and he was holding up this photo of these pile of fried spiders that people were eating. And I thought the synchronicity to some of my data was very interesting. So it may be the universe or some kind of guiding intelligence sort of giving me a wink and indicating that there's something to this data and its relation to the Hitchhiker Effect. So that's the data I got. I hope you enjoyed looking at it, and we'll see you in the next project.